Listen, cliffhangers are great, but they're also the most basic level of creating tension, and sometimes they can just feel a little artificial. A lot of writers rely on them too much, and it starts to get stale if that's the only tension technique you know. So we're going to look at 7 really smart ways that you can create tension in your book, other than just interrupting at the end of a chapter. Let's get things off to a quick start with number 1, the curiosity gap. How do you create curiosity in your reader? It's actually really simple. All you do is you ask questions and then don't answer those questions right away. You will answer them later, but not yet. Look at Leave the World Behind by Rumaan Alam. So we have 5 big questions that he asks in this book that make the reader really curious. 1, there's a blackout all along the East Coast and nobody knows why. There's this crazy loud sound that's powerful enough to drop someone to their knees. They don't know what caused it. 3, all air traffic stops. There's 0 planes in the sky. Then animals start migrating in mass. And then, and this is the real crazy one, all their teeth start falling out. What is happening? And so the reader keeps reading because they want to find out the answer to those questions. So here's a few guidelines if you're trying to do this in your book. The first one is delay, delay, delay. You cannot answer the question right away. You have to delay long enough so that the reader's curiosity can build. The second thing you should do for your book is incremental revelation. Lots of beginning writers will offer 1 or 2 mysteries, but they don't build on it after that. You want to have deepening mysteries that go behind and keep on adding curiosity elements. My third piece of advice, if you're trying this for your book, is to blow apart the easy answers. What this means is to try to make your story unguessable. For Leave the World Behind, I thought I had some pretty good guesses when the blackout happened and when all the planes stopped flying, but then the teeth and the loud sound, I have no idea what that is. But the last thing you absolutely have to do is you have to satisfy the reader's curiosity. You have to answer the questions you brought up. Leave the World Behind got 3.6 stars on Amazon and 3.1 stars on Goodreads. Ouch. Why? Because the book raised all these very interesting questions, but it never answered them. It never told us why all these things were happening. And people say, oh, it's a metaphor for environmental collapse. It's a metaphor for the state of our world today. That's great, but you can't put the literary technique ahead of the actual storyline, right? Create the storyline first in a satisfying way, and then you can bring in all those metaphors and deeper meanings. Oh, and by the way, people have been saying really nice things about BookFox Lab. Trish said she really enjoyed the one-on-one time with her mentor. Fiorenzo said he actually feels like a real writer now. And Chris said he's been writing for 20 years, but he still found all the advice in the lab really helpful. You can read more testimonials like this on the website, and the link is in the description. And please reach out if you want to join. Another strategy to create tension in your book without cliffhangers is number 2, an inevitable collision. So for this, what you want to do is you want to set up 2 forces that are on a collision path. And the reader's going to keep reading because they really want to see that collision happen. Now, at its most basic, this could be, say, the protagonist and the antagonist. Like in Ender's Game, Orson Scott Card, we want to see this kid lead a whole armada of spaceships against the aliens. And for the whole novel, we are looking forward to when that collision will finally happen. You can also set up a collision course if you have multiple storylines that are all disconnected, because the reader anticipating, oh, when are these stories going to align? When are they going to cross paths? Like in Dan Simmons' Hyperion, we have all these pilgrims on their own separate journeys, sort of like Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, and then they start to intersect and we see how the stories align with stuff like the Shrike and the Time Tombs. With a collision, basically your main goal is to try to make the reader anticipate that collision that's going to happen. If they don't know about it, there's not going to be any tension in the story because they can't look forward to it. So make sure they know. A third great way to create tension in your story is give your character a secret. And really, any type of secret works as long as one person knows it or multiple people know it and then other characters don't know it. Look at The English Patient by Michael Ondaatje, which involves an affair. So we know that Jeffrey's wife, Catherine, is cheating on him, but he doesn't know. And so for the whole story, we're really waiting until he finds out, and then we're waiting to see what he's going to do. So with a secret like this, it's not a secret from the reader, because then that becomes a surprise, right? The way to create tension is to make sure the reader knows the secret and to make sure that other characters in the story don't know it. Then the tension is created in when the secret will be revealed, and then how the secret is revealed, and then what the character does once they know that secret. I think this falls under the general umbrella of the dread principle, meaning you want to make your readers dread what's coming up in your novel. Or maybe not dread, but at least like be scared or be worried about what's coming up. This next strategy you probably thought of, but you don't really have a name to describe what you're doing, and it is number 4, mounting pressure. So this is a narrative structure where there are accumulating complications that are squeezing the protagonist. Once you set up a pattern where every single step of the story ends up being escalated and the next step of the story and escalated and escalated and escalated, then the reader's going to start anticipating those escalations and looking forward to them and also be worried about them. And a great example of this would be the movie Gravity. So first, the debris hits the shuttle, then Ryan Stone is sent spinning out into space, then there's not enough oxygen and fuel for both of them to get back. Then Stone finally reaches the International Space Station, but then the second wave of debris hits, and then there's a dangerous spacewalk to the station, and then finally reaches the station, but it's unstable and falling into Earth. So once readers see that pattern, they start looking forward to the next escalation, the next escalation. Oh, and hey, just a reminder to subscribe, because if you don't, YouTube won't show you my absolute best videos. And if you've already subscribed, please hit the like button, because that really helps me. The next step in creating tension without resorting to cliffhangers is number 5, unresolved emotional tension. Anytime you have some sort of underlying conflict between two characters that's unresolved, and they could be allies even in the storyline, that's going to keep the readers reading because they're uneasy about what's going to happen. A fantastic example of this would be Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. So the novel starts with a genuine love story between two characters, but in the end, the woman decides not to marry him and to marry some other dude. For 51 years, the reader and the characters wait. 51 years. Yeah, that's a long time to wait. So Florentino, the guy, is waiting for the husband to die so he can swoop in and rekindle true love. And then we are also seeing Fermina's marriage, the actual texture of it and what it's like. Finally, the husband dies, and this couple reunites in their 70s. So that's a great example of tension across an entire novel. We know this is true love, but there is something holding these characters apart. And because we have that emotional tension between them, we have to keep reading because we want to see how this ends up. But you can also have this on a scene level rather than on a whole book level. Think of Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. So Amy is feeling excluded because she was left out of this social outing to the theater. So she takes Joe's only manuscript of fairy tales that Joe has written, and she burns it. Just imagine someone taking your only copy of your work in progress and burning it. How do you feel? About 100 of you are just like, I need to make another backup. And then others of you are like, I would probably murder that person. So that is tension right there. That is emotional tension. And that tension is extended because it's not resolved by something as simple as an apology. Instead, Amy falls through the ice, nearly drowns, nearly freezes to death. And that sort of event makes Joe realize there's more important things to sisterhood, and she's able to forgive her. I love this next strategy to create tension. It is number 6, dramatic irony. Dramatic irony is just when the reader knows something that characters don't. And really the strategy here is instead of surprising the reader, you're going to tell the reader information because that creates tension as they're waiting for those other characters to find it out. Think about Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. Readers learn that Amy is alive and well and is, setting her husband Nick up long before either Nick learn it or the police learn it. Or look at the movie The Departed. The audience knows very early on the identity of both the moles. And so what that does is it takes very ordinary scenes and just injects them with tension. Now, there is a danger with this strategy. The danger is that the reader thinks that the characters are stupid because they should have figured it out long ago. You all know the stories where you're like shouting at the page like, why haven't you figured this out, you dum-dums? So your goal really is to make it seem reasonable that the characters haven't figured it out. Like there's no way they could have figured it out. But a second really useful strategy is to not think in binaries, like the character knows or they don't know. Instead, I want you to think in gradients, like they slowly start to have suspicions about one thing or another. And honestly, we see this in Gone Girl with Nick, and we also see it in The Departed, where there's like, wait a second, are you on the up and up? All right, now it's time for our 7th and final strategy to create tension. It is impossible choices. Ask yourself this: where in your book does your character face a difficult decision? Or maybe not even a difficult one, like an impossible decision. Now, the time between when they're presented with that choice to when they actually make that choice is what I call TUT. Time under tension. For an example of this, look at All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. This is a World War II story, and Werner is a German orphan who has a lot of skill with transistor radios, so the Nazis recruit him to sort of find all of these people sending out subversive messages? Well, he can follow orders and work with the Nazis to hunt down all these resistant fighters who will then be killed, or he can become a deserter and be killed himself. Now, there's a good amount of time under tension for this story. We know those are his options, and then for most of the story, he's existing in that gray space where it's like, what do I choose? I feel uncomfortable with this, but it's really my only path forward. But as we know, working with the Nazis is never the right decision. So in the end, he kind of chooses a middle path. He ends up concealing the transmissions of this French blind girl so they can't kill her. But just remember that once that character makes the decision, tension is gone. So keep that tut going for as long as possible. Hey, click the link below if you're interested in Bookfox Lab. And I hope these 7 strategies for increasing tension really opened your eyes to places in your book where you can increase the tension. And happy writing!